In today's video we'll be listening to and analysing Robert Jenson's passionate TEDx speech about feminism and the patriarchy, and later on we'll be looking at some hilarious stand-up comedy that was featured on A Little Late with Lily Singh.
Gender is a universe.
All white people benefit from racism.
The health problems I have are more age-related than weight-related.
You are a white privileged male.
That's just obnoxious. Sorry, you have to give me a chance to respond to that.
And we don't.
I'm here to talk about my own life. In the first half of my life, I struggled to be a normal guy, to be a real man. That didn't turn out so well. The good news is, in the second half of my life, I gave that up, and things worked out much better. So why the change of course? Well, it was an unexpected encounter with radical feminist writing that critiqued patriarchy.
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy. You might have noticed I used radical feminist critique of patriarchy 3 times in that previous sentence. And that's my job. That's probably the most important part of my job. To be a man...
Or a simp.
You're a simp, you're a simp, you're a simp, you're a simp.
Who stands up and repeats those terms, radical feminist critique of patriarchy, as often as possible until people stop being afraid of those terms. I leverage my presumed authority as a man to argue that that system that gives me that authority is very dangerous.
Ah, TEDx speeches. You know, I enjoy TEDx speeches as much as the next person, but I mean, when you search TEDx speeches on YouTube, it's mainly social justice rubbish. And this person, Robert Jenson, is a former professor of journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. From 92 to 2018, he taught graduate and undergraduate courses in media law, ethics, and politics, and this is where it gets interesting, because he focused much of his work on the critique of pornography and of masculinity, developed in his 2017 book, The End of Patriarchy, Radical Feminism for Men. In an interview with The Hindu, he says that I began reading feminist activists and intellectuals when I returned to graduate school in 1988. I was 30 years old. At that point, I knew nothing about feminism. You should have just stopped there. I really was trained, like most men, to be afraid of feminism, but when I started to read, the clarity of it was very compelling. My first entry point into feminism was the feminist anti-pornography critique. Like most men in the culture, I had struggled with my own use of pornography. All of a sudden, there was an analysis that made perfect sense and not only explained women's rejection of pornography, but also helped me to understand myself as a man. Men are socialised to see themselves as dominant, and there are some short-term benefits to that. We get the best jobs. Someone tell that to this tangerine. But it's a very constraining way to live. Masculinity is defined as dominance and control. Your capacity for empathy is stunted. Feminism helped me to understand limits masculinity put on me. In another article, Scroll adds that, meanwhile, Jenson claims it is important for all men to challenge themselves by re-examining their own behaviour from the feminist lens. That critical self-reflection is not always easy or fun, but I can testify that it has made my life richer and fuller. Well, you heard it here first. Feminism can make your life richer and fuller. I mean, richer in the literal sense because, well, you know, pay gap.
Yeah. Right. Masculinity in patriarchy. That is, again, masculinity in a system of institutionalized male dominance is relentlessly competitive, focused on conquest, which leads to inevitable confrontations, all with the quest of staying in control of oneself and controlling others. But here's the thing. No matter how competitive one can be, no matter how many conquests, no matter how many successful confrontations, no matter how much we stay in control of ourselves, we never really feel man enough. So what I want to do is outline an argument for why men should take radical feminism seriously.
See, I don't mind listening to his speech and listening to all the rubbish he's spouting, but does he have to make these creepy little noises? Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Remember that in patriarchy, men also try to control knowledge. That would be a K, yeah. If you're having trouble remembering that, D-I-C-K. So let's ask ourselves, do we still not live in a dick society? All right.
But you know, one could also argue that women are valiant, ambitious, generous, intelligent, never ready to give up a fight, able, loving. Oh, wait a minute, doesn't that prove that we live in a vaginal society? Ha!
I think most of us in the room would agree we want to live in a stable, decent society with gender justice.
I can't wait for Gender Justice Judy to come back on air. Honestly, it's been too long. So, A Little Late with Lily Singh has already been on the television for a few months now, and weirdly, if you go on the Wikipedia page, it says that according to Rotten Tomatoes, it holds a 90% critic approval rating. The site's critical consensus reads, "The delightful Lily Singh breathes fresh air into the world of late-night comedy with an energetic new show that's willing to play with the format in ways that will keep viewers looking forward to staying up a little late." Which is very odd because when you go on IMDb, according to 4,243 reviews, the average score for this show is 1.8 stars out of 10. Just to give you an idea, here are some of the reviews. No one cares if you're brown or a woman. God, this is the worst night show I have ever seen. When I switch on the TV, I want entertainment with a little of what's going on around the world. I don't want to hear you whine about how bad you've gotten it as a brown person and because of your gender or how many difficulties you have to face. For that, go to your friends. For your audience, make a good show or quit. Beyond my expectations, cringier than I anticipated. I am in awe of how a brown woman can get on television, embarrass her entire community, at the same time spitting the most moronic statements about white people whilst claiming to be the saviour of late night television. Aside from the joke stealing, she is just one of the worst comedians ever. This show is fantastic, if you hate white people. Oh, where do I begin? This was hard to watch. It was not funny. We get it. White people, white men in particular, are evil incarnate in your tiny bubble of reality. We also get that you're an Indo-Canadian bisexual female YouTube content provider on late night TV. Woohoo! Good for you. That won't get you very far if your program is garbage. What I saw was embarrassingly bad. Truly, just awful. And I won't be wasting my time watching that again. Stick with YouTube, Lily. You can pander to your target audience there, and they'll bob their heads up and down and eat it all right up. Your TV show is going to disappear faster than you can say, "I am a non-white bisexual ex-TV show host." But, I mean, if the official consensus is a 90% critic approval rating, then who am I to judge?
Everyone, please give a warm welcome to stand-up comedian whose name I can pronounce correctly, and that's why representation matters, Subha Agarwal!
I am so excited to be here. I never thought I'd be here doing stand-up comedy, especially considering my immigrant father's dream for me was to be president of America. Yeah, do you understand that? I would get phone calls like, "How's my future president?" I was like, "Dad, I'm at CVS trying to self-check out a pregnancy test."
Now, an interesting side note here is that while this comedian, air quotes, is doing her stand-up comedy routine, a lot of people in the YouTube comments were saying how embarrassing it was that they're actually using a fake laughter track. So when you listen to the whole routine and you pay attention to the audience laughing at each joke, it does sound like it is just added in because, let's be honest, her whole routine was painful as fuck to watch. So here's just a few clips of the actual audience laughing, and you decide, does it sound like the actual audience of, what, like 30 people who were there actually laughing at her jokes, or is it all just fake?
I don't want me in charge of one life. Also, this is my third pregnancy scare this year. I'm obviously not good at border security.
Ha ha ha, making jokes about promiscuity and not practicing safe sex.
And I joke about this, but it does get frustrating whenever me or someone in my family gets called a terrorist. Because I don't have an insult to throw back at white people to make y'all just as mad, just as fast. I thought I figured it out. I thought it was bringing up white privilege. But I forget, I live in LA. Everyone's so liberal, they just agree with me. I got into a car accident, I jumped out. I was like, "How dare you hit my car, you entitled white privileged son of a gun." He's like, you're right, I'm so sorry. I benefit from the cisgender patriarchy, my queen. I was trying to fight you, what happened?
Jesus Christ, this is painful. And on a related note concerning the show in general, in a recent article, Study Breaks even says that, aside from the alleged cultural appropriation, Singh often makes jokes that single out white people, despite the fact that they make up a large portion of her audience. Obviously, it's not wrong of her to highlight her accomplishment in beating out white men for the job. What reviewers found unfortunate was the way she delivered her message. Impactful punchlines about racial discrimination sometimes became unpleasant and alienating statements. Viewers also had an issue with Singh overusing the same topics for her jokes. I think they misspelt stealing, but whatever. One of which was pointing out the irony of being a bisexual Desi woman. I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong. Viewers grew bored of the repetitive jokes and sometimes found them grating. Rotten Tomatoes reviewer Siddhant said, absolutely cringeworthy for people of all colours, especially for brown people like me. This is most likely because of Singh's tendency to use stereotypical images in her satirical commentary about people of colour. The overall audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes stated that they were unimpressed by Singh's jokes because they had no punchline or effect on them. Her monologues carry great messages, such as female empowerment and queerness. and queerness in South Asian culture. Yet the modes she used to tell these narratives missed some viewers more than they hit. The anecdotes can be heartwarming at times, but Singh sure needs more practice in conveying comedy packed with social concerns.